Konnichiwa or konbanwa in the UK, it's very late now. My name is Jess Brown and I help Japanese language learners to connect with native Japanese speakers and discover new learning strategies within my supportive and accessible community, Nihongo Connection. Hello to those of you watching the replay. Please comment replay so that I can thank you for watching later on. If you have any questions whilst I'm speaking, feel free to pop them below in the comments. I'll do my best to answer your questions when I see them come up. So what will you be learning on this live stream? So today I'm going to be talking about speaking confidence and five ways that we make mistakes whilst we're speaking. So I'll start off with the first one, is we often forget to think about the person we're speaking to. Sometimes we may get distracted by the thoughts going around our head. Are we using the right grammar? Are we making mistakes with the vocabulary? Try to put those things out of your head and just concentrate on the person that you're speaking to. Try to ask them the questions that you have practiced in the past. Usually you'll somehow forget what you've studied in your lesson. You may have been able to ask questions to your Japanese teacher during your lessons, but for some reason it goes out of your head. But just try to recall them. Just try to look at the person you're speaking to and actually think about them as if they were your teacher. And they may well teach you as you go along. Sometimes, if you can't find the words that you want to use, they will often say the word for you. They may finish the sentence for you. And just listen carefully to what they're saying. They're trying to help you out. I've never really come across anyone who has shot me down when I'm trying to speak their language. They're usually very encouraging, especially in Japan. So that's number one, is concentrate on the person that you are speaking to, not letting those spinning worries in your head interrupt the concentration. So, number two, you should make mistakes. So the second mistake that people make is that they try not to make any mistakes. Why? You need mistakes to learn. Mistakes let you reset your brain and learn what should have been put there instead. So just try to concentrate on what you're doing and not worry about making mistakes. Even when I'm speaking now, I'm making grammatical errors. Just carry on, keep talking, and like I said, for point number one, the person you're talking to, if you're concentrating on them, they will probably help you out anyway. So that's number two. Make mistakes and go with the flow. Number three. Grammar is not as important as you think. Okay? I alluded to it in the second point, but we do not speak grammatically correctly every single minute of every single hour of every single day that we speak. We will often slip into a colloquialism. We will often use are where we should be using is instead of are. Where I live in Scotland, I noticed that a lot of people use have done, had done it, whereas that's not what I would say where I'm originally from. But that's a colloquialism. When you're speaking in a foreign language, you may get the grammar wrong. So what? If the person doesn't understand what you're saying, they may ask you questions. They will try to clarify what you mean. It may end up that say you said you meet somebody, but they misunderstood it and they turned up and you weren't there. Okay, these things sometimes happen. But generally speaking, grammar Don't worry too much about it. Just double check with the person. If you are worried about grammar, just ask them a little bit more to see if they understood what you said. Draw pictures, use body language, but don't get hung up on grammar. Just try and speak. Just try and say anything. Just start that conversation. Number 4. You worry that you don't know enough. You don't know enough vocabulary. You don't know enough grammar. How can you possibly have a conversation? Well, just try. When you were a baby, you couldn't speak and you still managed to communicate everything. You may have pointed, and your parents figured out what you wanted. You may have used facial expressions and you got what you wanted. Okay? There are other ways to communicate. Don't worry if you don't have enough vocabulary. That's why we learn things like これは何ですか? これは何ですか? You could just spend a whole conversation asking somebody that. これは何ですか? What is this? What is this? Or 日本語で何ですか? Okay, what is this in Japanese? 日本語で何ですか? People will start to give you that vocabulary, and the more you hear it, the more you will pick it up. After you've been surrounded by Japanese enough, you'll start to pick up a lot of vocabulary that you don't necessarily realize that you're collecting, and it will come out in conversation later on, and you'll think, well, where did that come from? So don't worry too much. Just get out there and start trying to speak to people. Even if it's a very basic self-introduction, asking them how they are. 元気ですか? 今は何時ですか? 今何時? You know, what time is it? 天気はいいですね. The weather's nice, isn't it? You know, just get yourself some basic sentences, and then find someone to say them to. They will then reply with something. You may not understand it. Don't worry about that. But the more you hear the reply, the more you'll pick it up. I have been on stage and somebody's asked me a question in Japanese. I didn't know the answer. So I just said, Sumimasen, wakarimasen. I'm sorry, I don't know. Turned out that it was something that I got asked all the time, and he just worded it slightly differently, and I didn't recognise it. So be it. I didn't understand what he was saying, and it was a very basic question. You just have to brush it off. You just have to go with the flow and treat it as a learning experience, and you will learn from it. When you realise what was said, you will learn and you'll remember it, and then you'll be all the better for it. So, number 5, the mistake that everybody makes is worrying that they will insult somebody. Okay, that's a fair point. You don't want to insult anyone. But if that person is understanding that it's not your native tongue, if that person is open-minded, if that person is a nice person, they will let it go. If you insulted them by mistake, they will realize that that was a mistake, and it will be okay. If your insult hurt them and it upset them, then they don't really understand that you're not meaning to hurt them, that it was a mistake. And it can't be helped. If that's the worst that can happen, that's it's not great. But you can't worry about that, or you'll never speak to anyone. I really, really, really embarrassed myself speaking to somebody in Japanese. I'll tell people it's really embarrassing. I'll tell people on a one-to-one, but I don't know if I want to tell everybody on here. It was quite embarrassing. And it was somebody that I thought very highly of. It was somebody I was trying to impress. And all I did was say something very, 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 very rude to him. And he just stopped, asked me to repeat it, which I did. Again, the same thing. Again, rude. And he looked at me, realised that wasn't what I meant to say, and so he asked me more questions to establish exactly what I was trying to say. And once he'd established it and we got to what I was actually meaning, he then told me what I'd actually said to him, and I was mortified. But after that, I was able to say so much more in Japanese, because it was almost like I got to the worst possible scenario. And so after that, everything was fine. And I think that's what gave me the most confidence. So what I'm saying is, if that person understands where you're coming from, you're not a native speaker, that you're going to make mistakes, even if you insult them, they should get over it. They should get over it. If they don't, that's potentially a problem that they have, not a problem that you have. So I hope that those 5 mistakes that people make with speaking confidence have helped you. I'll just recap very quickly for anyone that missed the beginning. So don't forget, concentrate. Number 1, concentrate on the person you're speaking to. Don't let those demons run around your head telling you that you're going to make mistakes or your grammar's wrong. Ooh. Concentrate on the person you're speaking to, not on yourself. Number 2, make mistakes to learn. Okay? Don't worry about those mistakes, and don't spend all your time thinking about mistakes. Mistakes, you need them. You need mistakes to learn from. Number 3, grammar is not as important as you think. Just say the words that you know. If they come out in a different order, it's fine, it'll figure itself out. But you need to get your mouth moving, you need to get the words coming out, you need to get your brain working to work through the speaking. Number 4, you worry that you don't have enough vocabulary, and so therefore you don't get into a conversation. You'll never get into a conversation if you wait for the right amount of vocabulary. Just use the vocabulary that you have and get more. Ask them. それは何ですか? What is that? これは何ですか? What is this? もう一回言ってください。もう一回言ってください。もう一度言ってください. Please say it one more time. Okay? Learn that vocabulary. Learn it on the job. And number 5, the last mistake that people make is worrying about insulting somebody. It's going to happen. To what degree it will happen, no one can say. But it'll happen. At some point you will say something insulting to somebody, and they will react, probably with surprise. You may well laugh about it together. If that person gets upset, so be it. But you didn't do it on purpose. You would never mean to insult them or hurt them. Unfortunately, you're learning their language and you can't necessarily get all the words right all the time. So be it. Okay? Just Don't worry. Just get on with it. Start speaking. Start using the language that you have. Start finding out the sentences that you can say to people and just ask them, ask them, ask them. The more you ask them, the more you'll hear the response, and the new language will come back and back and back, and you'll start picking that up, and then you'll be speaking to people and having conversations with people. So be confident, be brave, and just go for it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get started. The faster you start speaking, the more fluent you become quickly. So I hope that's been helpful. If this has been helpful for you, please comment below and let me know what was especially helpful for you. Please like this video and share it with your friends, anyone that you know is learning Japanese, even if it's somebody learning other languages, because that could be helpful for them as well. It's the same no matter what language you are learning. If you are interested in online conversation club, we do that once a week. The next one will be next week on Friday. And we're on Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest as well. So any questions, don't forget, put them below. Put replay below as well if you're watching this on the replay. And I look forward to seeing you on the next live. Oyasumi nasai.